Chaya Raichik, who is the head of an account called Libs of TikTok. If you don't know what Libs of TikTok is, it's basically a vehicle for transphobic doxing and fear mongering. And this human, I think, sat down with Washington Post reporter Taylor Lorenz, whose beat is basically the internet. And the reason that this interview matters, is because it happened the same week that a non-binary 16-year-old named Nex Benedict was jumped and beaten in an Oklahoma high school. And then the day after, died. Now, the coroner, I guess, has said that it wasn't necessarily related to, or the police have said it's not related to the beating that Nex suffered the day before. But I think we're still waiting to hear officially, although Lance seems to have a lot of breaking news. Now, the reason it's tied to Raichik and Libs of TikTok is because Raichik was actually hired by the superintendent of the district in Oklahoma to monitor woke activities, in quotes, books in the libraries, teachers who were gay. And lo and behold, Raichik successfully got one of the teachers who was non-binary, who worked at Nex's school, fired for nothing. Didn't do anything, just they were non-binary. So of course they're touching kids. So that's
she did
the
tweet
backdrop.
that out. She said that they were fired for grooming, just so we're clear. Like, she once again did that thing where she slanders or libels LGBTQ plus people by saying they're queers or child abusers or pedophiles. She did that in this case for that teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. So now Taylor's been following Chaya, so there's a few clips I want to get to. But number one, let's talk about Nex, because that was the biggest thing, was like, how does Chaya Raichik feel about Nex, this person who is in a school district where, yeah, they've been going after trans people like Nex. Take a look.
How do you feel about Nex's death?
It's very tragic. It's horrible.
Do you believe Nex should have been allowed to receive gender-affirming care?
She should not be allowed to go on irreversible puberty blockers or get sex change surgery.
So just right off the bat, oh, it's horrible, it's terrible. And then misgendering right there. Calling them she, and then saying, yeah, no, I don't believe that they should receive any kind of gender affirming care, or whatever Chaya understands as gender affirming care, because a lot of the like non-reversible puberty blockers, a lot of it is reversible once you stop puberty blockers, you idiots. But anyway, now that's the initial, not the initial, but those were her thoughts on Nex. And Lance, I have to say that she's sitting down with Taylor Lorenz, and two things are immediately upsetting to me beyond the fact that this woman is a fear-mongering a-hole and has single-handedly contributed to trans people in this country being less safe, I don't know, by however much percent. Two things. One, she's in Los Angeles, and apparently she lives part-time in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles, and I understand this is a big city, a lot of transphobes in this city, but bitch, really? You here too? Really? Really? Like, you're in a blue state, you're in a crime infested, homeless encampments. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this, she spends time between here and Florida, I guess, and then occasionally, I guess, visited Oklahoma once, where she's an advisor to the superintendent. And then number two, she's wearing a t-shirt of Taylor Lorenz crying. So she's openly wearing this. Now you're laughing. What do you like? I saw like Tim Pool, right wing, commentator idiot, was just like, oh, it's such an own. Like, like,
oh yeah, the cope was really strong. All the right wingers made videos about like, oh, Taylor Lorenz got so embarrassed. It's so hilarious. And I was like, this objectively, just from someone who watches a lot of people on both sides of the political spectrum, was a disaster for Raichik. It was an hour long, and Taylor Lorenz answers every single question honestly. Like, the whole thing, if you just want a summary of the hour, I think Raichik thought that she was going to get a gotcha. She was like, this is going to be a big own. I'm going to wear a picture of you crying from an interview that she did where she said she was getting a lot of harassment and abuse online. I got that photo of that face on my shirt, and it's going to be hilarious. And I'm going to I'll do like the Uno reverse card, right? So every single time, like Taylor Lorenz would be like, so it's really messed up, don't you think, that if you put someone on blast, say a nurse, doctor, a children's hospital worker, and then you put their address, if they get death threats, bomb threats, or perhaps violence enacted against them, and she's like, well, what do you think about all the death threats and bomb threats that I get? It's like, oh, I would condemn them. Just like right away. It was that over and over and over. She would be like, what do you think about this? And be like, oh yeah, no, I think that's bad. And so it looks ridiculous. Well, after like straight 30 or so minutes of this, obviously, like I know there's a lot of people who are upset with the very idea of platforming someone like Chaya Raichik. I think unfortunately people like, you know, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald have promoted the reach of Libs of Tik Tok to such a degree that it is a genuine danger for the LGBTQ plus community and specifically for trans kids. Like her work makes their lives scarier, makes their lives harder, and contributes to a lot of factors. You can look at study after study, all the things that are associated negatively with being trans as a kid, such as depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation, all disappear when cis folk, you know, start not acting like assholes. Like that is the factor. It's societal stigma. That's what makes their lives harder, is people treating them differently or not, you know, misgendering them or all that kind of stuff. So Chaya Raichik does a lot of real world damage, and there are countless examples. There's actual news articles that show when you do this thing that you do, you take publicly available information, or sometimes it is just like, this is a video of a doctor or a nurse. You then say that they're a child rapist, a pedophile, a groomer, and then you tell everyone, all your fans, where to find them. And then you add, they're coming for your kids. That's just their tagline, right? They're coming for your kids. They're coming for your kids. News articles that come out that show that these specific children's hospitals get inundated with bomb threats and death threats, right? So that's why this is like, these are acts of terrorism that are committed because you put a target on the back of, like, again, like it's such a, are we the baddies moment? Like, just children's hospitals, educators, nurses, doctors, like genuinely.
No, she is the baddie, and she
people.
knows she's the baddie. Like, and I don't give a fuck that I mispronounce her name, Chaya. I don't give a Chaya Hitler. That's what I like to call her.
Oh wow.
She's. I mean, come on, like, so. And to your point, that's exactly what she does throughout this interview.
She's a fascist. I agree.
She's a fascist. This is what she does throughout this interview, is spinning it around on Taylor Lorenz, even though she ultimately does not end up on top. Taylor is an incredible interviewer, and completely crushes it. Here, case in point of whatever, trying to spin it around, Monster Gal trying to spin it around, and then Taylor's like, no, I'm going to spin it back around, and what are you going to say to that? So here they are talking about whether someone should be held responsible for the kinds of violence that they incite, that they incite with their own fans and their own base.
So I feel like there's been, especially on, my colleagues have done great reporting on sort of like this rift on Twitter. I know that you have a very conservative fan base, and in your comments sometimes you'll see a lot of commentary about sort of the great replacement theory. What are your thoughts on that?
What are your thoughts on the comments on your post telling me to kill myself?
Horrible. Yeah, horrible. Obviously against that. Yeah.
So will you come out and condemn that publicly?
Oh, I would condemn it anytime. I'm against murdering anyone, of course.
So you're against death threats against me?
I'm a big, as somebody that's dealt with a lot of online harassment, I don't defend threatening to murder anyone. But I guess I'm curious,
because a lot of times it comes after an attack in the media, like someone like you or another journalist.
So are you saying that, like, if somebody posts something and then attacks follow, that person should answer for those attacks?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that people like you tell me that all the time. So I'm just asking if you think the same thing.
And she said, yes, I do think that that's awful and that's bad. like this is I think if you watch nothing else about the modern right wing, this is the perfect minute to watch, because it so explicitly shows the way that they do sort of the incitement of violence. They're the ones who are targeting, as we talked about, trans kids, teachers, nurses, anyone from the LGBTQ plus community, educators, and then people for existing. And when they get hate, they want to claim victim status, and they say, but we thought you, the left or the media, supported victims. Do you not support victims? And then the left's like, and the media's like, yeah, no, we do. And they're like, oh, okay, good. And then we say, well, but do you? And they're like, no, I don't. I'm just using this as a talking point to get you to admit that I'm actually the aggrieved and not the person that I'm ordering hits out on. Like, it is so perfectly encapsulates how they try to use like language they don't even believe in right?
Mm.
Like values, like protecting kids that they don't even believe in, or keeping people safe, to say nothing of painting themselves as the victim.
Yeah, I think what's wild about this too is that like you can really tell that her and maybe Matt Walsh is another example of this. They're so profoundly boring as human beings. They're so hard to listen to that they have
Yes.
to be extra malicious and say the worst things and really go a lot harder than maybe some other of their contemporaries will. But she becomes so popular. Who in their right mind thought this interview was a good idea? Like if she actually had, like an aide or a handler who was sitting there, they would have been like, no. But not
Yeah.
the answer she was saying, because like it comes across as like, have you thought any of this out? Do you even know the people you hate? Do you know the people whose lives you actively make scarier or worse on a regular basis? Like, you get paid for this. This is your job. This is your career. You have an
makes money.
empire of bigotry. She makes money, right?
Yep.
She used to be involved with the Babylon Bee and Seth Dillon. They were, front loading the entire thing, and now she won't reveal why they're not friendsies anymore. Either way, like, how do you not know your enemies? How do you not know the people you claim to hate? You couldn't answer very basic questions about like, well, what do you think about cis teenagers getting breast implants? That's a form of gender affirming care. What do you think
Yes.
about men, getting hair plugs? That's a form of gender affirming care. You don't care about these surgeries or these operations when it's for cis folk. You only care if it happens to trans people. And then she was like, oh, well, these are totally different. No, one of them is genital mutilation. The other one is just breast implants.
Yeah, exactly. It is absolutely gender affirming. And she also continues, she has no remorse for any of the death threats that she has helped to, or
None.
the bomb threats that have been called in. She's asked explicitly about that. And clearly this person has taken all the mirrors down in her home. I also just think it's really, like, here was her response to, like, what if you want gender affirming care because you're a happy person and it makes you feel better? This is her, really solid metaphor of a response.
Taking into account all of the happy people that have transitioned who are not harming anyone, you can't come up with a single material harm.
So if someone says, I'll be happier if I'm blind, should a doctor pull their eyes out?
Gotcha.
Got him. Roasted. No, you want to pull your eyes out. Like, this is her response to the idea of, like, there are happy people who have transitioned, who are literally just trying to live their goddamn lives. In fact, most people, what do you say about, oh, I don't know. Like, it's just so bad. And then finally, Lance, I don't know if you picked up on this. I won't have to play the clip, but she's like, I just think gender is like made up, and it's like,
oh, that was
made up.
amazing.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, and then she's like, and then immediately she's like, because it was created by a pedophile, and I was like, I think you're talking about Foucault. I think that's I can't be sure about this, but I think that's what's happening here. And no, Foucault did not invent the concept of gender, but yes, it is the social construct. But the fact that you're just willing to use it as a gotcha, like that's the whole thing.
Well, she's
right?
like, no, I think it's made up, and then Taylor's like, yeah, no, it is a social contract. She's like, no, it's made up, and you're like, okay, but that's well, by who? By who? I think you're saying this, and so it's just like, the whole, and then Taylor's like, okay, so if we only just went by male and female, but people who presented as biologically male wore dresses, would that be okay? And she's just like, she does not know how to answer that. Like,
well, that was one of the best parts I think that Taylor Lorenz did, is she tried to get it down to its core. What do you have to say to people who are happy, like genuinely happy? Like just entertain me for a second. Pretend that I know you say they're all miserable, but what do you say about people who are happy? Why do you want to control or ruin their lives, right? And there is no good answer to that, because like it's just kind of like the same topic about women's bodily autonomy we were talking about before. It is ultimately about control, right? It is ultimately about a thing I don't like, I don't understand, or is scary to me, and I'm now going to oppress it however I can.
And it but using children, but it's even more disconnected. Like, at least with anti-abortionists, like, there's like they can pretend that, an embryo is a life or a zygote's a life or whatever. But this is like, you're grooming children. Like, no, they're not. They're living their damn lives. But of course, the people who, it's sad, obviously, that, Taylor kind of owned her on this, but because she's usually used to just like talking or going after, children. So
right.
that squares. Here are kids in Oklahoma. Alec, 19, graduated Owasso High School. That's where Next went to high school. Said things became so dangerous in Oklahoma for LGBTQ plus youth. He has moved out of state. Then Evan Powers, trans kid in an Oklahoma high school, said he carries a bulletproof backpack along with books to use in self-defense. I'm quite honestly scared to go to school every day, says Power 17, adding, I have been bullied by people that watch Libs of TikTok. I mean, it's like dating. It's like young kids who are like, I found an Andrew Tate video on my boyfriend's phone or some shit. I feel like this is
huge red flag.
You know what I'm
Huge red
saying?
flag.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
these are these accounts that are like, it might feel disconnected if you're not trans or you're not a trans kid in school, but like if you are, Libs of TikTok is like put a target on your back.
And
it's
like you said
terrifying.
earlier, oftentimes just for existing is the messed up thing. I know like a lot of people try to downplay what Libs of TikTok specifically does, but it is actually very insidious that she has found a way. Because like I have nothing against if you want to put cringe compilations, like liberal tears compilation, watch them melt down. That's totally different than you saying this is a person trying to sexually abuse kids, and all the person's doing is like, hi, I use they them pronouns. That's the video in a lot of these cases, right? She'll upload those. People try to downplay the severity of it, but it has real world and dangerous consequences. And yeah, like those examples you pulled up, they're very heartbreaking. There's another one from an Owasso student who used to go to the school who stated that they were sexually assaulted and they're trans men, and someone sexually assaulted them trying to remove their transness through sexual assault at the school. And they've given a video testimony to explain that this is the level of hatred that has been normalized by people like Libs of TikTok. And like it's all a game. Chaya is the other messed up thing. Like you were saying that she doesn't take it seriously. She changed her Twitter banner profile to bombs, to the Libs of TikTok logo made out of bombs. And that was in response to the USA Today article saying that there are multiple bomb threats being called to children's schools based on your quote unquote, posts or reporting, whatever you want to call it. It's like it's one of those things where I love laughing at a horrifying fascist like Chaya and all that kind of stuff because it is very satisfying. But I think sometimes people don't realize the banality of evil. Like she seems completely boring and vacuous, and there's nothing really. She doesn't even know what she's talking about. But that doesn't matter. She has a network that is utilized by a lot of people who do genuinely hate LGBTQ plus folk and want to remove them.
Well, that's what she likes to think she's just a troll.
Yeah.
But she's not. She knows, she's seen the impact. So here she is, she's putting the bombs in the logo, and she doesn't, she is trying to get around, all the line of questioning because it's like, oh, I'm just an influencer and I'm just like, I'm just a troll. I'm just, it's fun. It's not. You know exactly what you do. You rip people's videos. Someone's like, here's a drag show I was in, or here's a thing, or this is a school play, or whatever. Literally rip people's videos. You post people's names. You post people's schools. You're getting hired by the Oklahoma school board. Like, what the hell?
He didn't know why. She was asked, it's like, so what are the qualifications? He's like, what do you think the qualifications are? And then obviously Taylor Lorenz had to educate her on that. It's like, oh, I would assume that you need to have
a background. Well, I was an educator. No, this woman is vile. Y'all, vile. I have words and thoughts I cannot even express. But I wouldn't say them because I don't want her to feel like a victim, because she is an ultimate Karen and she will fucking cry big old croc tears. I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for this woman to become irrelevant. Lance, I got hate in my heart, boy. I got hate.
Well, I was gonna say one funny little crumb though, because you said Karen. Her origin story is like the super Karen. It's the most Karen origin story of all time. When she was asked what radicalized you? Oh, COVID measures, like masks, washing your hands, mild inconveniences is what turned you into a super villain.
I love the idea of washing your hands made someone a fascist.
Yeah, I know, right? I had no choice.
Like to smell like ass. No, oh God, I can't even. Meanwhile, Taylor Lorenz is wearing a mask, which is very funny because I think Taylor is very still, and good on her, hyper aware of COVID, doesn't want to get sick, whatnot.
I believe she's immunocompromised too. She's advocated for that before, saying that it's a big risk to her. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad, because they're both arguably wearing something that triggers the other one. Right? Taylor's wearing a mask, which and they've talked Chaya, whatever. They were like, oh, why are you wearing a mask? They're all freaking out. And then of course Chaya's wearing the photo of Taylor crying.